You'd be amazed at the number of conversations I've had with clients about how they can't go to the toilet until they've had their coffee. Well, something's not right there. So we need to explore why, what's going on.
This is the Born to be Brilliant podcast, helping you harness the habits and unlock the tools to bring you more meaning, vibrance, and the personal power to help you shine like the diamond you are. Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode where I am joined by Janine McGee, who is a nutritional therapist, and she is here to share with us today how we can really take good care of what we put into our systems so that we can operate from a place of optimal health and vitality. Janine, a massive welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat about all of this with you.
Me too. My only concern is that we don't have 4 hours, because I know that we could talk for a very long time about these things. So just to get our listeners familiar with you and what you're all about, just tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you into nutritional therapy.
So I have been practicing since my eldest was around 1. So I graduated when I was pregnant. And I stumbled across nutritional therapy because I was fed up of feeling unwell. I had no end of gut issues, no end of hormonal issues. You know, I used to avoid going out because of gut issues through being self-conscious from bloating or fear that I wouldn't make it to a toilet in time. I had hormonal issues to the point that I passed out at work through pain, and going to the GP felt like a waste of time. I was given one pill after another to combat different symptoms. Each then brought a new set of symptoms that needed tackling, and I got to the point I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm an intelligent woman. There has got to be a better way. And after doing what I tell all of my clients not to do, I did some Googling, stumbled across nutritional therapy, which was something I'd never heard of before, and realised that it was all about putting the body in balance and finding optimal health. And after implementing a few of the things that I had found, everything changed. I knew there'd be women out there like me that were fed up of feeling just not the way they wanted to feel, and basically had a complete career change. And now I spend my days supporting hundreds of women to get to optimal health. It's
amazing. You're definitely not alone, and I imagine there'll be people listening to this who have been suffering with these sorts of things for way too long, and like you said, it's not easy to know where to go or what to do about it. And the default setting in the UK is we'll go and see a GP, but as we were saying before, that often that leads to dead ends or more things that you put into your system that have their own side effects and downsides. So
definitely,
it's I love the way you are here and you exist as somebody who can provide what feels like such a wholesome and pure solution to multiple problems.
Definitely. I mean, my main areas of expertise is women's health, postnatal nutrition. I work with a lot of self-employed mums that want to get back to work as quickly as possible. I do a lot of work with postnatal depletion, which can affect women for up to 10 years post-birth. So that's something worth bearing in mind if any of the listeners have children under the age of 10 and don't quite feel themselves. It's always worth exploring postnatal depletion. I do a lot of work with hormonal issues such as PMS, PCOS, endometriosis, a lot of work with gut issues from bloating, pain, IBS style symptoms. There really is so much that nutritional therapy can help with. I also do a lot of work with adrenal fatigue and stress, and that sort of chronic exhaustion from hitting burnout. You know, sadly, we live in a world where burnout has become a badge of honor as opposed to something that's few and far between. And I help a lot of women recover from that and then ultimately thrive.
Yeah. Oh, I think, well, that's amazing. And I know lots of people listening will relate to that, because as a, you know, entrepreneurial business owner, mum myself, and I know lots of listeners are, we do push ourselves to the brink of burnout. And even if that's not intention, even when we know better, I know better than that, but I still do it at times, almost, what's the word I'm looking for, but blindly, because you're just doing all the things, and it's not till you stop. Luckily, I'm really self-aware, but I do go, whoa, hold on a minute, that's a bit much. And you don't realize the impact that's having in the parts of you that you can't see.
Definitely
It's
not.
not always obvious. And if
Definitely.
you do, and if you wait till it gets to that, then it's probably too far. So it's
Yes.
not getting to that place in the first place is the key, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It really is. And it's so easily done, you know, especially like you say, when you're juggling so much, especially if something, you know, is beyond your control. If you end up with kids off school, so you've got to work up later, or, you know, anything like that, it's very, very easily done to hit that burnout level. But being more aware of it, putting in place things to stop you reaching that level, supporting yourself from a nutrition point, supporting yourself from a lifestyle point, can change absolutely everything.
It's that support system, isn't it? Like, obviously
Yes,
we talk about, you know, there's the fundamental things that you need and that we can neglect. And yeah, that's so true. And if we are missing any, through whatever reasons sometimes we do, or, you know, food groups or whatever else, it's knowing what you can do to help that. So like supplementation was one of the ones I was going to ask you about. Yeah, there's pros and cons, I'm sure, but
100%.
just naively buying into the latest thing that you see flash up is not the answer, but knowing what your body actually needs can make all the difference, right?
Oh, 100%. You know, I'm a huge fan of testing so that you know exactly what your body needs, because you know what your friend might need or what your boss might need is not what you personally need. You know, we're all made up differently. The only thing I am going to caveat that with is that I have worked with hundreds and hundreds of women, and there has not been a single person that hasn't needed a magnesium supplement. So
Wow.
yeah, it's one of the things that I will happily put in most people. Magnesium is involved in over 300 enzyme reactions in the body. When we are busy, stressed, tired, we use that up like there is no tomorrow. So that is one supplement that I would happily recommend that most people go and get. There is a variety of forms available. Don't just pop into the supermarket and pick up a magnesium supplement. Chances are it will be magnesium oxide, which will have you running to the toilet within 30 minutes of taking it. It's great for those that suffer with constipation, but for the majority of people, it's the last thing that you need, and it's not actually that absorbed that well. So a magnesium glycinate is your best bet. And that one's actually targeted for stressed, busy people. It does everything that you need to support you adrenally. In terms of testing to find out exactly what supplements that you need, I particularly like a hair tissue mineral analysis test. It does a screenshot of what's gone in for the last 3 months.
Wow.
And therefore you know exactly what you're deficient in. It is such an effective, powerful test, and I am raving about them to anybody that will listen at the moment. I have seen incredible results with my clients since putting them in place with everybody that I work with. When you know exactly what you need, the results are so fast. So fast. When you implement the things that these tests can pick up, it's just unbelievable. And it will show you essentially what you're deficient in, and equally if you've got too much of something. And by learning what you've got too much in, you can then put in the nutrients to help your body eliminate it. So one of the things that I'm particularly seeing a lot of at the moment is that people actually have too much calcium stores. And because of that, the body's then not utilizing it, so it's storing it in tissues. Now, symptoms of a calcium sort of toxic level is that tiredness, not feeling fully energized, achy joints, all of the things that you would expect to see from a calcium deficiency are right up there with an overload. Now, you need magnesium and all of the B vitamins to help move that through the system. Like I said earlier, most people are deficient in magnesium. I've not worked with a single person where I haven't put that in. And so again, by sort of doing that, you're then combating that. These hair tissue mineral analysis tests can also pick up if you're deficient in something that would impact your thyroid. Now, thyroid, particularly in women as we get older, is something that generally just needs a bit of a hug. And symptoms of sort of a non-optimally working thyroid, cold hands and feet constantly, even in the summer, poor energy, poor sleep, dry skin, hair falling out, particularly sort of in that sort of forehead line. And I see that a lot in really, really busy women. It can give me an indicator if that needs a bit of support. It can give me an indicator of your if your adrenals need a bit of support, by sort of letting me know what you're deficient in or if there's anything toxic there. And sort of signs of the adrenals needing support is really stressed, hunger at 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, just needing that pick me up because your energy's flagging. Things like poor sleep, waking up in the middle of the night, that sort of up and down energy roller coaster. So yeah, they're an absolutely fantastic test that can tell you so much. And yes, of course, supplementing is brilliant. I use it with all of my clients, to be fair. But again, I'm a huge fan of food first and doing what we can with food before supplementing.
Would you say the interesting thing about magnesium there, would you say then, even if you have magnesium in your diet, it's just not enough? Is that the case? Because if that many women are deficient, I'm sure I read somewhere recently what food has magnesium in, and I was thinking, I must be doing okay then. I can't remember what it was now off the top of my head. But do you know what foods would be good?
So you've got things like brown rice, nuts, seeds, oats, all of the leafy greens, especially the dark ones. So things like kale, spinach, collard greens, spring greens, cabbage, beans, pulses. There's a lot of food that contains magnesium, but
it's just not enough.
Not enough because of the soil quality. Right. It's what it's grown in. In the same way that we are what we absorb, so is our food.
Yeah.
So, if you're buying organic absolutely everything, then yes, you may well get enough from food, unless you fall into that super stressed, super busy category, in which case I'd probably still supplement magnesium. But yeah, if you're buying organic absolutely everything, you may well be okay, unless you've got symptoms to suggest otherwise.
And so if you didn't necessarily have symptoms or not obvious ones, I'm thinking about me right now, thinking, okay, I do get quite a few of those foods in, but I can't necessarily vouch for the quality of them and what they're grown in. But I do have a pretty good diet in that sense. But I'm a really busy kind of person. I don't have obvious symptoms, but if you we're going to do a test, aren't we? And maybe we'll do a report back episode on my results and the changes. That would be really
love
fun.
That.
So we should definitely do that. We'll do that. But just now, before we've even done that, if the likelihood is you'll find that I could do with more magnesium, what would I notice as a result of having that? What improvements could I see?
It's endless. So energy levels, better quality sleep, and I know sleep's a big one in your world. But better quality sleep. You'd wake up feeling better as well. There'd be no waking up in the middle of the night. You wouldn't have any restless legs Mood can improve by taking magnesium, particularly things like anxiety and overwhelm. That can make a big difference. Magnesium can make a big difference for that. Headaches, period pain, hormonal sort of symptoms like PMS, perimenopausal symptoms. Magnesium's a big one. Gut issues, magnesium can play a part in, especially that sort of IBS style. Yeah, the list really is endless. I remember having a chat with one of my clients, and she was like, "You really haven't got a bad word to say about magnesium, have you?"
No, just get some in
just
there.
Get some. Just get some.
I have ADHD, and I know lots of female entrepreneurs that do, and that overwhelm, that can enhance overwhelm, and actually, you know, really, when we think about it, what mum isn't overwhelmed in this day and age? So I can see how that would be an immediate support for
100%
women.
100%, and particularly with ADHD, magnesium is something that I generally put in alongside omega-3, brain health.
Yeah, I do have omega-3, but I've not been consistent with that, so that's given me a little nudge. Gosh, there really are endless. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to ask you about supplements, because there's a time and a place for supplementing, but I think the key is making sure it's the right thing. It's
100%.
Like I said, so easy to go, oh, I heard that so-and-so has this, so I'm going to get that. And it's like, well, what if you don't need that? What if your body needs something different? So
definitely. And, you know, we are all made up differently. We all have our, you know, unique DNA, genetic coding. We all need something differently. We all process things differently. We all have different tolerance levels when it comes to stress. I actually had a DNA testing done on myself. We're talking many, many years ago, back when I was studying now. And it came back and told me that I had a stress gene. And I was like, well, that explains a lot. And since then, knowing that I needed to support my nervous system for stress support, it's game changing, absolutely game changing. So you know, just by finding out I had that like genetic coding, it just it explains everything.
For stress.
Yeah.
Wow. I had no idea. That's amazing. So some people are basically genetically predisposed to experience more stress than others. And it's just a case of then, I'm sure, I mean, I'm a firm believer that you can train yourself and you can
absolutely. Absolutely.
Our genes don't define our,
no, definitely.
So it's not something to be like, oh, well, I'm just going to be more stressed than everyone else. But exactly what you've said, though. But I know I can do this to support that. I know that in your case, well, if I am genetically predisposed to more stress, then this is going to help negate some of that. And
oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, it's like the analogy, genetics load the gun, diet and lifestyle pulls the trigger. So it's always super helpful to know, you know, what you're dealing with, but living a healthy lifestyle, supporting, you know, yourself completely through diet, through mindset work. You know, I'm a huge advocate for meditation, visualization, you know, all of that to support what you're putting in. You know, that alone can just change everything when it comes to stress support.
Which I guess in turn will support and change your gut health. Our stress and our gut are very closely
massively interlinked. Massively interlinked. So our gut is where we produce serotonin, our happy hormone. And if we're stressed, we're not producing as much serotonin, and it's just this vicious cycle. So looking after your gut will in turn look after your stress, which will in turn look after your gut.
It doesn't actually have, it's scientifically quite complicated, but actually for us walking around day to day doesn't actually have to be that complicated if we just get in the know of what we need and what we don't need. And I think so supplements is one big area, and you know, well, whether that be additional or whether that be through, you know, like you said, food first, but knowing what we want to put in. On the topic of what we do and don't want to put into our systems, I've got a little list of things that I'm like, so which of these should we avoid and not? And I'm I'm really open-minded with these things, because I know that, and people are very confused, because you can listen to one podcast that says you shouldn't have this and another that says you should, and there's lots of confusing information out there. It's great that we do have such information at our fingertips today, but it can send people into a paralysis. And I know there have been times where I've just gone and almost frozen in the kitchen of like, wait, I want something and I don't know what to put in my body, because somewhere in the past, year, I've probably heard an argument why I should never consume that again for everything.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? And then I'll open the fridge and go, God, what do I do? And it is very confusing. And I think maybe that's because there isn't a one size fits all answer. And there are lots of it depends, because it depends how it's grown. It depends how it's been manufactured, or it depends how it's got from its original source to your fridge in the first place. There are so many things, and what does and doesn't agree with your body. But so obviously we have those nuances, but in terms of sort of more generally speaking, there are some big ones that I think come up a lot, and one of those is caffeine. And I'm sure you have this conversation a lot, but caffeine, pros and cons, and for the gut, for the brain, decaf. And I heard a horrific thing of what decaf even is recently, and I don't know if that's true or not, but just talk to me about caffeine.
I could talk about caffeine all day. Absolutely all day. So it very much depends on the person. If you are someone that doesn't sleep particularly well, or it's not necessarily that you don't fall asleep particularly well, but more if you wake up regularly throughout the night, then caffeine's a big no-no for you. If you are someone who is anxious, caffeine's a big no-no. If you are someone who feels overwhelmed and stressed, I would avoid it. If you are someone that relies on caffeine, I would avoid it. So if, for your argument's sake, you wake up in the morning and think that you couldn't possibly function properly until you've had your caffeine, it will be the first thing that I take from you.
Well, that's got to be like alcoholism, really, isn't it? It's like it's an addiction, and it's not. It's not a healthy usage of caffeine.
No, definitely not. If you're someone with PMS or perimenopausal, I would take it out. The only time that I would say caffeine is absolutely fine is when we've got confirmation that your adrenals are absolutely where I want them. So that's your stress hormone, cortisol. So from an energy point, when I know that you're not feeling anxious anymore, when I know that you're not relying on it for energy or relying on it to go to the toilet. You'd be amazed at the number of conversations I've had with clients about how they can't go to the toilet until they've had their coffee. Well, something's not right there. So we need to explore what's going on. And so it's a very much dependent on the person. General rule is I will take it out of most of the people that come to work with me, but that's possibly because most of the people that come to work with me are tired, stressed, not sleeping properly. When I've got them to optimal health, then enjoy a caffeinated coffee every now and then. It can be great for needing that sort of instant focus. That said, there are other things that can give you that don't then give you the spike that caffeine does. Things like lion's mane, which is a medicinal mushroom that can be brilliant for focus and cognitive function. Sport performance, caffeine can sometimes be very effective for, unless there's any gut issues. And again, it depends on what sport you're doing. But at risk of sounding incredibly vague, it's very much dependent on the person question.
Yeah. There are these energizing sports drinks and things. I used to have some. I don't anymore, actually, because I was a bit... because I thought if something's that colour, it can't be good for you, but also because the caffeine and if something makes you feel tingly and almost like in your face, it's like there's something not right there. So I actually decided that I could pull the same level of workout out of my body without needing it. And
Yeah.
now I don't have that. But I did for a long time have that for a pre-workout. And again, it says it's all natural caffeine, but but what else is in it for it to be that bright colour and so on?
Yeah, no, I'm not a sports nutritional therapist, but I know a lot that are, and that you wouldn't see any of us recommending those. The only time that we would recommend something like that is on an extreme sporting event, for example, running the marathon, or doing something where you need that extra bit of oomph. But for a general workout, you would never find me recommending anything like that.
And something extreme like that, your body is going to process so much so quickly anyway.
Yes.
That the pros probably outweigh the cons there. But day to day, and again, it can become addictive. It can become a reliance, and that's when it's not good.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
And so, okay, a lot of what you're saying there makes complete sense to me, and there are other ways to get the focus and the brain stimulation that you might find that caffeine does. The downside for me is I just really enjoy the taste, but I know that it doesn't suit me very much because I know I'm sensitive to caffeine. So I know that one caffeinated drink can leave me feeling a bit shaky.
Yeah.
It's usually not straight away, but a little while after. And I'll feel really uneasy. In the past, I've had times where I've actually almost felt like my stomach's not even felt right. But usually it will be like a little bit shaky, a bit like on edge. And you can even smell caffeine in urine, I find. And it's, for me, I know there's a sensitivity there. Definitely couldn't have more than one caffeinated drink. It doesn't sit particularly well. But I really love the taste. And people say, well, have decaf. But I'm like, well, that is still caffeine. It's not zero caffeine. It's not just a flavour. It's not just coffee flavour. There's still caffeine in there. It's like just less. People say that in the evening. Oh, it's okay if I have a decaf. It's still caffeine.
There is still caffeine in there for you.
No.
Unless you're buying a very, very good quality brand like Exhale. That's one of my favourites. Because it's actually packed full of nutrients, and the processes that they use to decaffeinate it are fine.
Okay.
When looking for a decaf coffee, you want to make sure that it's either the process it's gone through is either CO2 or Swiss water.
Okay.
Anything else is a chemical process, which means that you're essentially just putting more junk into your system than what you would have done had you just had the coffee.
Well, that was the fear. I mean, I heard somebody said decaf is just bleached coffee beans. And I was like, what?
That's the chemical process.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, if you go through Swiss water or CO2, you're absolutely fine.
Okay. Interesting. So a decaf that's processed properly in the morning, not before, not after lunch, not in the afternoon, is probably your safest way to consume coffee if you have any sensitivities. But like you're saying, there are a large number of cases where
it's just not worth it.
To just cut it out.
Absolutely. And a lot of clients will say to me, but I'm going to feel awful. I'm going to feel awful without the caffeine. And I am yet to meet someone that hasn't messaged me after a couple of days saying, you know what, I actually feel so much better since I've cut it out. Your energy levels are stable. That sort of tingling, jittery feeling that you mentioned before is all linked to blood sugar balance and cortisol levels dropping. And caffeine naturally spikes your cortisol, which then naturally spikes your insulin levels, and they've got to come down. And they usually come down together hard. So by avoiding stuff that can naturally cause those spikes, you will keep it at a much more even keel.
How about the impact on the brain as well? Like, does caffeine not... I know this isn't your area as much, but I know there are brain experts who talk about the impact of caffeine on the brain? I mean, it's not great for it.
Again, it depends on how much you are consuming. Even with my clients that can tolerate it, I would still say no more than 1 cup a day because of the damage that it can do from a long-term health point. And, you know, again, for me, it's not so much the brain side of things. It's more the long-term impact on stress and just that you will end up hitting burnout. You know, overconsume it, you will end up hitting burnout, and that in itself can decrease cognitive function. Right. The more and more stressed you are, the more chronic stress you have, the more you are impacting your brain.
And so caffeine could fuel that process, is what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. I heard that caffeine can restrict blood flow to the brain.
Again, depends on the person.
Right. Not a blanket statement.
Not a blanket statement, no.
Fair enough. Okay. Definitely there's becoming more and more awareness, I think, around coffee and caffeine. And
yeah.
Well, I mean, caffeine's in a lot more than just coffee, isn't it? Let's face it. But
oh, yeah.
Children drinking Coca-Cola is definitely something that I don't like at all, and it's a rarity for one of my children who likes it. The other isn't interested in the slightest.
That's good.
And that, yeah, definitely, it's great. And I think also the more awareness children have about it, the less likely, hopefully, they'll be to be interested in it. But if we as parents don't know, that's the other thing. If parents don't know, and they're just like, oh yeah, it's fine, what chance do they stand as children if we're fueling that? So yeah, okay, well, that's caffeine.
Yeah.
My next one is, well, I would say meat generally, but particularly red meat. And the reason I ask is because I personally, over the years, have noticed my own sort of body's response when I've had red meat. Now, in terms of liking food, I like most foods. I enjoy most foods. But there came a point where I felt like red meat wasn't particularly agreeing with me very well. And so I reduced and pretty much cut it out. And I've noticed difference and improvement. And I don't really know why. I just know that there's something there. And so that's why I ask.
So red meat, again, it depends on where you are buying it from. Red meat is one of the things that I will always buy organic, grass-fed. Yes, it costs more, but it's worth it. Absolutely worth it. So red meat can be inflammatory, but that is predominantly from what the animal is fed.
Yep.
When you're buying organic grass-fed, you won't get anywhere near the same level of symptoms that you do from having regular red meat. Genuinely. Okay. It can be inflammatory. It can cause gut issues. That said, a lot of my clients I will encourage to have grass-fed, organic, a couple of times a week, particularly in women that are in menstruation age, because it's very good, very rich in iron, but only if it's good quality. If it's not good quality, or you know, they can't afford it or don't want to spend that much on red meat, then I avoid it because it's not worth it. And you can get everything that you need from red meat from other sources. Okay.
That really makes sense. That really does make sense. I know my husband's probably disappointed, and he does a brilliant steak night, and you know, he really does do it, and it's delicious. But now I'm just like, no, don't want to have that because of that. And yeah, it would largely be bloating, discomfort, and that will be the inflammation as an effect. And especially lamb, like, it's quite fatty usually, isn't it, lamb? And I would really notice it after having lamb. And I haven't eaten lamb for more than a year now, if not longer.
We store toxins in our fat cells. So the fattier the meat, the more toxins it contains.
Right.
Which is, again, why I will stress organic grass-fed with red meat, because they're generally fattier meats.
Okay.
Which might
Makes
explain
sense.
why you feel a bit uncomfortable after having lamb.
Yeah.
But have a look at Piper's Farm. It's where I get most of my meat from. They are an exceptional farm. It's all grass-fed, all top quality, and then you can have a little bit of compromise with the husband.
Yeah. No, that sounds good. That sounds good. It just sounds better all round, that you're knowing, again, like a bit more about where that's coming from.
Absolutely.
What you're putting into your system. And that just goes to show, though, the variation that's out there.
Yes.
So I could be deficient in some things because I haven't been having that. I do have other forms of protein and I do have a good diet, but there could be things that I'm lacking.
Definitely.
Reducing
zinc, iron, possible B vitamins.
Yeah. I can't wait to do our test.
No, I can't.
I'm like, I feel like I'm not going to change anything. I'm going
No,
to do
don't.
this with you.
Don't change a single thing. I always say to clients, because before I have a session with someone, I get them to keep a food diary. And I have to say, I promise you, this isn't a test. I'm not expecting you to be good. I just need you to eat normally so that I can see what's been going in for the last, few weeks, months, so that I know what needs to be added in, as opposed to you trying to be good to get your gold star.
Yeah. No, that's going to be fascinating. Watch this space. We will do another episode on the outcomes and the journey. So I know I've asked you about this before, but let's just talk about milk and dairy because it's again, it's one that for years I've not had cow's milk in my house since my kids were probably babies, and I'm talking 10 years ago, but it's just not something we have in our house. So and now I kind of think, why do we consume it? Again, inflammatory, like it's all these things. Talk to me about milk.
I'm not a huge fan of dairy. The only time I will, again, caveat that is for children from a calcium point, particularly if you've got a fussy child. Unless, of course, there's an intolerance. But on the whole, if your child can tolerate milk and dairy, get it in, especially if they're fussy. For most women, again, most women that come to me have some form of hormonal issue, whether that's PMS or perimenopause or adrenally or thyroid. And I will take dairy out as one of the first things that we explore. The reason for that is highly inflammatory. It antagonizes the thyroid, which is responsible for your energy. The thyroid has a big interlink with your adrenal hormones. So from like the stress side of things, with the PMS, particularly for things like period pain, that low energy fatigue in that week leading up to period, or, perimenopausal mood changes, sleep changes, dairy comes out, and people usually notice a positive difference within a couple of months.
Wow. Yeah, my husband years and years ago cut dairy out when he had some IBS symptoms that he tried everything, homeopathic remedies, all sorts, and in the end he went, I'm just going to cut. And I think he actually cut dairy. No, it was dairy. He did try cutting out red meat for a bit as well, for various reasons. But the dairy, 3 days. 3 days.
It's a very quick turnaround. Very quick.
His problem is he loves cheese, and that's crept up him. But for me as well, that inflammation. Like I don't consume any cow's dairy.
Yeah.
I don't need cheese. I do like it. I don't need it, but I tend to go for goats.
I do like goat's it's cheese. The one thing I will say to people: if you cannot go without than go for goat or sheep's dairy, one of the main reasons that cow's dairy is inflammatory is linked to the protein strain in it, A1 casein. Goat and sheep contains A2, which is much less inflammatory.
Yeah. And also with the cows, I'm again going back to the red meat thing. You've got all the things that they're being either injected with or given, and growth hormone, and
all the antibiotics.
We spoke a bit briefly before this about the earlier onset of periods in girls these days.
Yeah.
And I didn't ask this, but is there potentially any link there with what we are potentially putting into animals that they are then consuming that could be triggering that kind of thing?
Possibly. I mean, the diet that our children are being fed absolutely plays a part in the hormone side of things. You know, particularly in periods starting earlier and earlier, the PMS symptoms as well, you know, that sort of puberty side of things. That's linked to testosterone surges, which happen in both boys and girls. And testosterone is fueled by sugar.
So high sugar is going to lead to moodier teenagers. Is that what
basically? Yeah. Moodier teenagers, spottier teenagers, and just the irritableness and the more extreme puberty symptoms. You strip back the sugar, put in the hormone support foods, especially zinc. Zinc's a big hormone support food. So things like pumpkin seeds, eggs. You'll see a big difference.
Eggs, that was another one of my questions. Eggs. So the egg's good for zinc, right?
Yes.
I'm noting this down. Eggs is another one that, because eggs are quite fatty, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're a high fat food. And it's another one that I have felt gut discomfort after consuming eggs. And I feel like I'm okay with one egg, but if I have two eggs, I don't feel so good. Is that potentially, again, just if maybe I'm sensitive to high fat? And
it could be. So again, with you, if certain foods make you feel uncomfortable, particularly, you know, like the high fat foods, I'd be looking at, you know, is your body producing enough stomach acid? Are you digesting things properly? Do you need digestive enzymes to start supporting those? Which the hair tissue mineral analysis will give us
tell us
bit of a picture on, and if that's not enough, then we'd be looking at doing a stool test to pick that up further. But I'm confident you will see big improvements after the hair tissue mineral.
I'm excited. Yeah, because you combine egg and avocado, which is obviously a favourite breakfast, you know, smashed avocado and egg on sourdough. But you put those two together for me as well, and I'm like, love it. It tastes amazing, but my goodness, do I know about it quite soon afterwards. And
you're just making me more and more excited to start doing this.
And so this is like this over years that I've identified this and gone, oh my goodness, okay, if I just have a bit of that, I'm okay. So it's, you know, not like I'm allergic or highly intolerant, but it's actually when you combine too much of those sorts of ingredients.
Yes, but you should be able to tolerate them. And if you can't, there's
a reason.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I'm excited. This could change my world.
Yeah, it will.
I'm excited. Okay. So we've covered like the key groups and all the things that I wanted to ask you about. I think it really is mind-blowing what we can do to support our bodies and brains and our function, generally day-to-day function of focus, energy, health, well-being, you know, physically and mentally. It all really is underpinned by what we're putting into our systems and what we're fueling ourselves with. And,
yes, absolutely.
You know, there are so many. Every restaurant you go into now. You know, any allergies? They never used to ask that. That's relatively new, and it's because there are so many more allergies now. People are there are so many intolerances, probably largely, like we've said, due to how things are manufactured, produced, what they're sprayed with, what they're, you know, doing.
Yes.
And it's like, what's going on inside of our guts, that we could potentially fix and refresh and eliminate some of these problems.
So I always look at someone's gut through stool analysis, and I will work out if they have enough diversity in microbiome, if there's any parasites going on, if there's any, I'm going to call them bad bacteria to avoid getting too sciencey with you all, but looking at something that could potentially be impacting you digesting food optimally. Most people have no idea how good their gut should feel. You shouldn't experience any bloating at all. Yes, you should feel full, but you shouldn't need to, unbutton your trousers because you're uncomfortable after a meal. You shouldn't need to run to the toilet after food. You should be going to the toilet and, properly with a well-formed stool twice a day. And it should be well-formed. It shouldn't be difficult to pass. It shouldn't, be I need to run to the toilet now type bowel movement. It should be well-formed, easy to pass. And I will explore all of that by looking at stomach acid, microbiome, parasites, diversity, and exploring all of that and making sure that all of that is 100% balanced to essentially get someone to optimal health. Our health begins in our gut. It is linked to so much.
Yeah.
And it's usually one of the first places that I will start with most clients, regardless of what they come to see me for.
Can you tell from the gut analysis about hormonal related things as well, or is that separate? Really?
That's completely separate. But if the microbiome isn't right, that can be playing a part in hormonal issues. So yes, they are linked, but I wouldn't necessarily come to conclusions as to what's going on hormonally. It would be more, you've got gut symptoms, let's work on that, which should restore the hormonal or part of the hormonal issues.
Fascinating. It starts in the gut, guys. It starts
It does.
right there. Okay, well, I'm super excited to just get out. I'm like, right, let's get this booked in. Let's get me let's do the hair analysis. Let's report back and on the journey. It's been so fascinating to talk to you again, and I just love this conversation. I really, really do.
I know, I could talk to you all day about this stuff.
I could come up with questions all day.
Maybe next time we need to block out a whole day and record like a series of...
Yeah, we'll do a whole series just on this. Yeah, no, I do think it's so fascinating, and I think the insights that you provide are brilliant. There, you've got the science there, but you're also talking from a real life perspective. You know what it takes for people to live function in a normal way, but also to optimize that health, optimize our vitality, and be able to be at our best in our own bodies and in how we show up. So much gratitude for you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And anyone else that's listening that's thinking, I want to know about this, I'd love to get this analysis done with Janine. How would you like them to reach out to you, Janine?
Either via my website or Instagram page is
amazing.
Probably the best place to contact me.
Well, we will put those links in the show notes. Anybody who wants to join me in having their hair analysed and finding out more about what is going on in their gut and in their whole system, do take that action. Reach out to Janine. I know she'll be only too happy to talk to you.
My inbox is always open, and I could talk to this to anybody all day long.
I love that. You're so generous with your time and with your knowledge. Thank you, Janine.
You are so welcome.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and remember, go out there and shine your light bright because you were born to be brilliant.